I think what our friends and partners want is a Britain that's confident, that works with them to address some of the really tough issues. And here in New York, actually, there's a very difficult issue. How do you respond to what the Iranians plainly did in blowing up those Saudi Arabian oil fields? And there are some people who want to be very tough, others who can see real difficulties of going down that track. So what the UK is doing is trying to bring people together, trying to de-escalate tensions, come up with a solution for the Gulf region. And my own view very strongly is whatever your objections to the old nuclear deal with Iran, it's time now to move forward and do a new deal. And so we'll be working with our European friends and with the Americans to try and encourage that way of thinking.
But this is about the rule of law, and people can watch Sky News around the world or read British newspapers. And when they say you see in things like that, isn't it harder to try and convince countries like Russia and China and Iran that they too must obey international rules?
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Well, no, look, I mean, we are a proud, law-abiding country, and it is one of the great glories of the UK that we have an independent judiciary and a legal system that is admired across the planet. Plus, we have the great advantage of legal certainty. And I'll be saying tomorrow, I think at a breakfast, I will be inviting businesses in America and elsewhere to come to London, as they have been in ever-growing numbers. By the way, we've got record inward investment into our country, a record confidence in the UK, because it's got the rule of law, it's got the right language, it's got the biggest financial centre anywhere in our hemisphere, it's got fantastic advantages. So that's one of the missions that we have here in New York today.
Prime Minister, you talk about the rule of law. Tomorrow the Supreme Court will decide whether or not you were right or wrong to prorogue Parliament. If the vote goes against you, you'll be accused of misleading the Queen. You've also gambled and lost in Parliament. Do you ever worry that you're taking risks that are just too big and this could all topple over, making you the shortest-lived Prime Minister in history?
I think the most important thing on the case before the Supreme Court, let's wait to see what the justices say. I do think it was right to, and it is right for us to have a Queen's speech. We've had the longest period now without a Queen's speech, the longest parliamentary session since the Civil War. Members of the Labour front bench have been clamouring for a Queen's speech to get on and end the parliamentary session. We've finally done it. And by the way, we're not losing more than 4 or 5 days of parliamentary sitting time to do this. Plus, don't forget, and here's the kicker, actually, MPs, contrary to what is suggested, MPs will have ample opportunity to debate Brexit and to study the deal that I may be lucky enough to do, or working to do, on October the 17th and 18th. They will have time to study that, to look at the progress of the negotiations, both before that summit and after it. They spent 3 years talking about Brexit. I think the people of this country aren't exactly convinced that parliamentarians want to get Brexit done. Now's the moment for them to show it.
On trust, there are questions from your time as Mayor of London. You and your office stand accused of repeatedly doing taxpayer-funded favours against official advice for a very close friend of yours, Jennifer Arcuri. Is it true?
Well, what I can certainly say, Sam, is that we did a huge amount of work when I was Mayor of London, selling our fantastic city around the world, beating the drum for London and indeed for the UK. And I'm very proud of what we did. And I can tell you absolutely that everything was done with complete propriety and in the normal way.
Look, this might be uncomfortable, but it is important. What was your relationship with Jennifer Arcuri?
I can tell you that everything we did to promote London and the interests of London and London business was done completely in the normal way and with utter propriety. And I'm actually proud now to be doing the same sort of thing again here in New York, promoting our country, promoting our economy. And
but people
that
are
would be
asking these
part of
questions
what I
because
do tomorrow.
People are asking these questions because they want to know whether they can trust you, not out of prurient, but to know whether or not you have integrity in public office. If people can't trust you at home, what are world leaders meant to make of this?
As I say, we in the London administration did everything with complete propriety, but I think what world leaders can certainly take from the UK is that they have an ally and a partner that will continue to stand by them. We will stand by our friends and partners in NATO, in the European Union, and here in the UN. And if you look at what the UK has been able to do here in the UN, and indeed as we did at Biarritz, we are working to ensure that the West, broadly conceived, remains in alignment on some very, very difficult issues, whether that is climate change or what's happening in the Persian Gulf or biodiversity. The UK has a leading role, and I find the partners I talk to really value the UK's role and want us to contribute even more.
But is it the case that you're just not answering questions about that relationship? I mean, is it because you used to be a journalist? Is there a sense that because with the laws that that the Supreme Court are looking whether you broke, or whether questions around whether or not you used public money properly, is there any sense at all that the norms and rules don't apply to you?
No, look, I've given you a very clear answer about my time as mayor and what we did to promote London. I'm very proud of that. As for what we're doing here with our friends and partners around the world, you can see we're working hard to promote peace to stop an escalation in the Gulf region. And if you want to promote trust, by the way, in politics, as I never tire of telling you, the single most important thing you could do actually is to respect the judgment of the people and the will of the British people, and to get on and deliver Brexit on October the 31st. And that is what we're going to do.
Last one on Brexit. Your policy might be best described as trying to kick some of the issues around the Irish border down the road, down to the other side of Brexit Day. The EU seem to be saying no. What is there to talk about here in New York on Brexit, given that?
I think we can make progress, Sam. I think it's not easy. There are some very difficult technical issues, but there's a great deal of willingness to try to make progress. And I think possibly what's becoming clear to people is that the UK has actually made quite a big offer when it comes to the unity of the sanitary and phytosanitary zone for the whole of Ireland. That's a big concession by us. It's an imaginative move, and we're working with our friends to see how we can develop that thought and, with consent, turn it into a solution.